Welcome back, everyone. No matter where you are, no matter what time it may be, I hope y'all are doing well out there. Tonight's encounters don't have a theme. They don't follow rules. They don't line up neatly. They hit from every direction like they're daring you to keep listening. Some of these people were doing the most normal things you can imagine. Getting firewood, stepping into their garage, putting their kids to bed, and something stepped out of the dark that changed them forever. No warnings, no logic, just a moment when your stomach drops and you know something is watching you, something that's not supposed to exist. What you're about to hear is not cozy. It isn't safe. And the farther you go in, the more you're going to realize how close these things get to ordinary life without anyone even noticing. Thank you for listening. And I want to remind you, if you've had an encounter of your own and would like to share it here on the channel, send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. My email address is linked in the description below the video. Lock in. Let's begin. Everyone grab a drink. Lock your doors and windows. Hit the lights. And let's get started. Hey, Reels. I don't even know how to explain, but here goes. Don't use my name, and I'm not real big on typing out long things. But some of the stuff I've heard and encounters you've narrated on your channel, the way you carry yourself, the way you treat people with respect, that's the only reason that I feel safe enough to share this. I travel a lot for work. Small towns, weird little motels, places that feel like they're stuck in the 90s. This happened in 2018 when I was working a job in southern Illinois. I checked into this tiny roadside motel off Highway 51. You could probably see it in your mind. The lobby smells like old cigarettes. The soda machines are buzzing in the hallway. The kind of place where you double-check the blankets before you sit down, if you know what I mean. I was too tired to care. I just needed sleep. I remember looking at my phone, and it was around 1:57 a.m. when I finally went to bed. I must have dozed off for about 20 minutes because the next thing I remember is this click at the door. I thought maybe I didn't lock the deadbolt all the way, so the metal was shifting or something. I tried to ignore it. Then the handle turned. Not like it slipped. I mean, someone tried to open the door, and they were trying to open it slowly, like they were checking if it was locked or not. I completely froze up. I just stared at the ceiling thinking, this is it. Some druggie is about to kick my door in and do God knows what. The handle went back up, then slowly went down again. I couldn't get up. I don't even think I could breathe. I've stayed in a lot of cheap places and I've had drunks knocking on the wrong door before, but this wasn't that. This felt intentional, like I was the target of something. I finally sat up and looked toward the door. The curtains were shut, but the bottom edge lifted just enough with the AC blowing that I could see under it. Reels, I saw fur. I didn't see a person's shoes. I didn't see pants. I saw dark, thick fur. And whatever it belonged to was definitely out there. I could see it clearly. I could only see the lower parts of its legs, but I could also see that they were bent backwards, like a dog's. I grabbed the remote. Yeah, I know, useless as hell, but it was the closest thing to me. And just watched that shadow stand there. I heard it exhale from outside the door. It was almost like a snarl, is the only reason I could hear it, but it stayed pretty quiet. The handle twitched one more time, then it walked away across the parking lot. And when I say walked, I mean it moved upright, smooth like a human. These steps were heavy and they were spaced far apart. I didn't open the curtains. I know, I should have. I didn't try to look. I didn't want to. I waited until sunrise, packed my crap, dropped the key in the night box, and got in my truck. While I was pulling out, I looked over at the strip of rooms and saw the roof line. Whatever stood outside my door, its shadow had gone higher than the bottom of the roof. I've never told anyone because who the hell's going to believe this? But after listening to your channel for a while, I found it on accident. I figured maybe someone out there has seen this thing, and I was right. I can't sit here and tell you 100% that it was for sure a dog man or something else, but I know it wasn't human. Humans don't have backwards bent legs covered in hair, and they're not 8.5 feet tall. I haven't been able to stay in a motel since that happened. Thanks. Anonymous. Hello, Reels. My name is Dale. Yes, you can use it. And to be frank, I'm not someone who shares personal stuff with anyone, especially online. But I guess if this is going to help someone, I could at least share it. What's it gonna hurt? It's not like I'm going to meet anyone on here in person or anything. There's a whole lot of people named Dale. Anyway, this was last winter, February to be exact. I live in a regular neighborhood outside Knoxville. Nothing creepy about it, just a bunch of older houses on little quarter-acre lots. I'm a single father with 2 sons. We've been here about 6 years, and I've never had a reason to feel unsafe. It happened on a day with an ice storm that went on into the night. The trees started snapping, and you can feel the whole house start to creak. Around 11:45 at night, the power goes out. It wasn't the whole street, it was just my house and the one next to me. I saw the rest of the road glowing like normal. I figured it was the breaker. I grabbed a flashlight, stepped outside into the back porch, and right away, something felt off. It wasn't the cold either. It was like the whole yard was waiting. I don't know how that even sounds, but I don't care. There was something out there. I could feel it. I walked down the steps and headed for the breaker box on the side of the house. It's only maybe 20 feet away. It was just me shivering, tapping the flashlight to stop it from flickering. As I'm doing this, I start to hear this heavy breathing. This did not sound like a person, and don't mistake it for a dog panting. It wasn't that either. It was a lot deeper, like whatever it was had lungs the size of a truck tire. It was coming from the space between my shed and the fence, a narrow 3 or 4 foot gap that I've had trouble squeezing into myself. I pointed the flashlight over, but the beam barely hit that corner, and the breathing stopped immediately. I took a few steps closer, and I heard the leaves shift. It was just one step or slide of the foot, but it was heavy. I instantly started freaking out because I knew this had to be at least a human or something bigger. I could hear the weight. Something inside me just said, nope, that's not a person. I started backing up and hit the flashlight on the ground angle, trying to catch shadows. I saw the outline of a shoulder slide behind the shed, 6 feet up the wall, easily. Nobody's shoulder sits that high, and it doesn't really make any sense even after I saw it myself. Then for some reason it started to circle the shed. I didn't hear walking, I felt the ground push under my feet. The steps were coming around the right side like it was trying to get a look at me. I ran back up the porch steps so fast I almost fell. But I didn't go inside. Maybe stupidity or curiosity or both, but I stood there watching that dark strip beside that shed. My neighbor's motion light came on, and that's when I finally got a look at this thing. Just the top half of it. It was leaning forward, out of the shadows far enough that the light hit part of its face. Wolf, but not a wolf. too tall, and the eyes weren't shining from the light. They were glowing on their own, a yellow color. It stepped back so fast that I almost didn't catch it. Then everything went dark again, the motion light went off. I didn't go back inside right away. I stood there staring until the cold started to hurt my fingers. It never came closer, but I could feel that it was still there. I know it wasn't gone. I don't know what it was waiting for. Maybe it was waiting for me to go inside before it left, I'm not sure, but I could feel that it was still there. The power came back on around 3 a.m. I didn't sleep at all. The kids slept through the whole thing, thankfully. The next morning I checked out back and around the shed. I couldn't find any prints, none that I could see anyway. I don't know what I saw, and I sure as hell don't tell people around here about it. But it definitely wasn't a bear, which is the only thing that could have been that big. Something was standing in my yard. It had a wolf's head and a man's body. It was standing there that night, and it wanted me to know that it was there. There's no other explanation for the behavior. Thanks for letting people talk about this stuff. Dale. You can call me Joe. I work a job that nobody even notices. Warehouse crew for a distribution company out in western Oklahoma. I've been on night shift for years. It's boring but predictable until that one night where it wasn't. It was 2 years ago in April. It was a humid night. It was storming. The metal walls were popping from the temperature changing. I was one of the only 2 people on shift that night. Me and a guy named Travis running inventory in the office. Around 1 or 2 in the morning, I was doing a pallet count in Section B, back corner of the warehouse. It's the darkest part since half the overheads never work night and never work right. Forklift battery was charging, so I was just walking the aisles with my handheld scanner. I kept hearing this metallic clanking off in the distance, like someone bumping into a shelf. It happens sometimes when rats get into the wrap or when the roof expands. So at first I didn't really care, but then I heard actual footsteps. It was like someone really tall taking their time. I just thought it was Travis, so I asked, "Dude, are you back there?" But my voice just kind of died in the air. No echo. It felt off immediately. I kept walking. I know that sounds pretty stupid, but I've had weirdos sneak in here before and try to steal tools and stuff. So I figured I'd just check to make sure. Better to be safe. I turned into the last aisle, the one where the old metal racks are so rusted they squeal when they move. And that's where this thing was. At the far end of the aisle, between 2 shelves, it was standing there in plain view, upright. It wasn't crouched down, it wasn't hunched forward, it was just standing there, leaned slightly forward like it was about to charge and run straight over me. At first all I saw was the outline. That's all my brain would allow me to interpret at the time. It was tall, wide across the chest. I saw the pointed up ears. I thought it was a costume. I swear to God. My brain was scrambling, trying to make it normal. It stepped backward into a sliver of light from the loading door. It had a face, man. A dog's face. But it was stretched, longer, more human around the eyes. The fur was all down its arms and across the chest. It was a lot thicker there. The arms were way too long, and it looked like it had hands. Now, I will say I don't feel aggression toward it, not at the moment. It wasn't trying to come after me. It didn't let out any growls or signs that it wanted to hurt me. It didn't do anything except tilt its head like it was trying to listen. I don't even remember dropping the scanner, but I must have, because it clattered on the concrete and echoed loud. That thing's ears twitched at that sound. I swear on everything, it just looked curious, not aggressive, just intelligent and aware of the situation. I didn't turn around, but I definitely started backing away. It stayed in that same spot, just watching me. When I got around the corner of the aisle, I took off running, full sprint to the office. I told Travis someone broke in. He grabbed a flashlight, and we both found metal pipes, and we went back together. There was nothing there. There wasn't a shadow, a sound, nothing out of place. No sign that anything had ever been in the aisle at all. This part right here, though, the pallet wrapping on the lower shelves was torn open like something ripped past it. Not extremely violently, more like a large animal had squeezed through. I never saw it again, but I did quit night shift about 2 weeks later. The problem is I can't unsee it from the one time I did see it. I can't pretend that this was a human. I know what I saw. And if you want my opinion, I think these things are 100% demonic in nature. That's my 2 cents. Thanks for letting me tell this and giving me somewhere to put it out. Joe. This happened to me when I was only 14. Damaging age for something like this. I'm not going to use my name. This happened on the east side of Jacksonville, Florida. I'm 32 now, and this just feels wrong for me to even be typing this out or talking about it. Where I grew up, all the neighborhood kids used to cut through this drainage area behind the school. There was a long concrete storm tunnel that ran under the road. It was wide enough for 2 kids to walk side by side, but it was pitch black once you got a few steps inside. We used it as a shortcut so we didn't have to walk all the way around the block. I used that tunnel hundreds, if not thousands of times. Never thought twice about it, ever. Then came this afternoon we're going to discuss. It was late in the summer, right before school started back. I was headed to my friend's house carrying my PS2 controller in my pocket because we were going to stay up all night playing. The sun was out. Nothing was weird or creepy in any way. That is, until I got close to the tunnel. There was this smell hanging in the air. It smelled like a wet dog mixed with something maybe metallic. I'd never smelled it before, and I've never smelled it since. This wasn't sewage or anything rotting. This was something else entirely. Something sharp that kind of burned your nose, sort of like chemicals. I remember slowing down, not because I was scared, but because it was just plain weird. Florida's full of strange smells, but, again, not like that. I stopped inside the tunnel and instantly noticed it was colder, which would be normal, but it's not a few degrees. I'm talking, it was way colder. The sound carried in this strange muffled way. I made it maybe 10 feet in when I heard something move farther ahead of me. It sounded like metal or claws clanking against the concrete. My first initial thought was, oh crap, there is a big dog in here with me. There was plenty of strays around, so that was definitely a possibility. I stopped moving and squinted my eyes and tried to look into the dark. I sure saw something, but it wasn't what I expected. I saw 2 eyes. They weren't glowing like a movie monster, more like they were catching all the sunlight from behind me, except they were too far apart, and they were almost touching the top of that tunnel, and they were holding statue still. I whispered hello. I feel stupid now, but I was just a kid, and I was hoping it was a person. It answered me with a sound that I will never forget. A low, quick exhale, almost like a horse clearing its nose, but a lot deeper, more controlled, like it was letting me know it heard me, and it didn't want me there. Those eyes dropped down lower, like it had crouched down, and then the shape behind them moved, and I realized how big this actually was. The outline of its head, it wasn't a dog's head, really. It had pointed ears, sure, but the muzzle was very short and narrow. But it had this bulky body shape around the shoulders, like it was built to move on two legs, even though it was crouched. I hope this description's okay. I'm trying my best. I didn't walk out of that tunnel. I busted backwards so fast that I scraped both my elbows on the concrete getting out. I didn't even stop to look behind me. I ran all the way to my friend's house, halfway crying and half choking. We never used that tunnel after I told him what happened. And here's the screwed up part. A week later, when school finally started, the county put a metal grate over the tunnel entrance. Huge, thick bars. I asked one of the maintenance guys why they were doing it, and he just said, "Something big got in there last week. Animal control told us to block it." I knew whatever was in there wasn't just big. This was very weird to me. Did animal control know something about this? This thing was built like a person, like a man. It moved like it was highly intelligent. I don't know why it didn't chase me down, 'cause it could have easily. Maybe it just wanted me out of that tunnel. Those eyes, don't make a mistake, they did not look confused or scared at all. They just looked focused on a 14-year-old boy that wandered into the wrong tunnel at the wrong time. I still can't go past that spot anymore without my chest feeling like it's going to cave in. I don't know what else to say here. Dogman, something else, I have no idea. You take it upon yourself to think what you will. Thanks for letting me send this in. Anonymous. Reels. Everyone I know on a personal level just calls me Leroy, so that's fine. This goes back to the early 2000s when me and my wife were homeless for a little over a year. We weren't addicts or anything like that, just young, broke, and trying to stay alive long enough to rebuild our lives. We were living out of an old Sunline camper I bought for $300. It didn't run, there was no electric, we kept it parked way back behind an abandoned gas station outside Asheville, North Carolina. The roof leaked awful, the door had to be tied shut with a rope, but it was ours, and it kept us somewhat out of the rain. I'm telling you all this so you understand the setup. When you're homeless, you learn how to read places. People think the woods are peaceful. They're not. They have moods. They have pressure. Sometimes you step outside and you feel watched, and you know to go right back inside. That's how all this started. Around 2 a.m., me and my wife both woke up to the camper rocking. It wasn't shaking, it was a steady pressure like someone was leaning their weight against it from the side and pushing back and forth, rocking it. I thought this had to be people messing with us. We had trouble before with teenagers messing around, but I wasn't sure, so I opened the window curtain and looked out. There was nothing on that side of the camper, but the rocking did not stop. Instead, it shifted to the back, then to the other side. It was like something big was making a circle around us. The whole air felt heavy. Even the bugs and everything got quiet. My wife was terrified and kept saying, "What is out there?" I had no answers for her. I felt worthless at the time. I couldn't even protect us because I didn't know what I was protecting us against. The way she said that, I can still hear it now, the desperation in her voice. It kills me. On the second night, we heard heavy steps pacing around. My wife kept begging me to not go out there. Please don't go out there, so I didn't. But something hammered against the outside wall near the side of the bed. You could feel the entire thing shake. It vibrated through the wood. Then it started tapping, just once. Sounded like a very big finger tapping. Everything quietened down. Nothing else happened. On the third night is when we saw it. We were outside around 7 p.m. making some ramen noodles on a little propane burner. The sun wasn't completely gone yet, and for some reason the woods beside the gas station just started feeling unwelcoming, would be a good word. The birds disappeared. You could hear the wind higher up in the trees, but not at ground level. My wife, all of a sudden, just froze up. Her eyes bulged out, and she was staring right past me. I thought she was looking at someone coming up behind me, but I turned around expecting to see a person. What I actually saw destroyed my whole view on everything. About 30 to 40 yards away, right behind an old Pepsi machine laying on its side, something tall was standing there. It looked like a black bear standing up. We had seen those before, but this one's head was far too large. Its body was too lean and muscular, and the head looked more like a wolf than a bear. It leaned forward a little, and the shape of its head became more clear. This was more pointed. Like I said, it was canine. The arms were extremely long, and it had hands, not paws, and the arms were so long the hands were somewhere around where its knees should have been. Its legs bent backwards like a dog's would if it stood. This thing started huffing and stomping the ground as it started to growl. It was looking at us the whole time like we were the weird ones. I whispered for my wife to get inside the camper. She didn't move. I had to pull her by the arm until she snapped out of it. When we both got inside and shut the door, well, tied it shut, it never tried to get in. I watched it out the window, just stepped back behind that Pepsi machine, totally calm, legs bending as it lowered itself, like it was squatting to keep watching. We didn't sleep at all that night. I stayed up watching until it left. The next morning, there was no claw marks or any of that stuff you see on TV. Just this awful smell was left by the Pepsi machine that smelled like urine mixed with pennies. We left that same day. We walked 5 miles into town until someone gave us a ride. We never even went back for the camper. We never even went down that road again. Fast forward 20 years. We've got a home now, a little one, but ours. I work maintenance for a school district. My wife is a CNA. We rebuilt our whole lives, despite everything stacked against us. But every single time I see a Pepsi machine, I swear it makes me want to throw up, and I cannot drink Pepsi without being reminded of that monster. The little things that stick with you, huh? I don't know what they are. I don't have any answers for anyone. I just know they're real, and I know they're out there. It was as real as anything else, and it was smart enough to watch us without making much noise. It tried to stay hidden. Well, that's it for old Leroy. I appreciate your time, and I hope to hear this on the channel. You're a good one, Reels. Keep on keeping on. Thanks, brother. Hello, Reels. It's nice to finally speak to you after all this time. I've been a long-time listener since maybe 3,000 subs. Anyway, you can call me E. I live in a regular neighborhood in Rockford, Illinois. There's nothing rural about it either. The houses are close together, fenced yards, a normal life. This place, the scariest thing you expect to see is a raccoon getting into your trash. It was back in 2019, and this still eats at me because it made me realize these things don't care if you live in the middle of nowhere or in the middle of a cul-de-sac. It was around 10:30, 11 at night. I was in the living room watching TV. I was almost asleep. My kids, 2 girls, 8 and 11 at the time, were supposed to be in bed. Then my oldest calls out, "Dad, there's something outside the window." I figured they were just trying to spook each other. Kids do that. But then she said, "No, it's loud. It sounds like it's right against the house." That got me up fast. Their bedroom faces the backyard. There's nothing back there except our swing set and the neighbor's fence. I went in their room expecting maybe a raccoon or the wind hitting the siding in a wrong way. The second I stepped in, I heard it back behind the trees. It was a heavy, wet breath. This was rhythmic, purposeful, almost like it was listening for us to react. My youngest was sitting up in bed with her blanket pulled up to her chin. Her eyes were huge. They were terrified, and rightfully so. I remember her whispering, "Dad, it's right under the window." I don't know how to describe the instinct that went through me. I felt my entire body shift into protection mode. I told them both to go to my room and shut the door. They ran. I stayed. When I pulled the curtains back a little, all I saw was blackness. But the breathing got louder, like something leaned in closer. That was enough. I backed away, grabbed a flashlight, and went outside through the garage, circling around the fence so I'd come up behind whatever or whoever it was. Outside the house, the air felt charged. It wasn't cold, it wasn't warm, it just felt electric. Like the whole yard was somehow static. I can't really explain it. That's all I can say here. Anyone that's felt this before will understand what I'm saying. I raised the flashlight and stepped around the corner of the house. Nothing was under that window, but I did see the grass was pressed down like something heavy had been sitting or standing there. My neighbor's light flicked on behind me. I turned around thinking maybe it was him or one of his kids, but it wasn't him, and it damn sure wasn't a kid. My brain tried to fit this thing into something normal. A big dog, maybe. Just a weird shadow, and I was scared. But when it moved, and then there was no denying what I was looking at. This looked like a werewolf standing in my yard. It was behind the playset. It was dark, and it was standing perfectly still. Its outline was huge. This thing was an absolute monster. It was narrow in the hips, its shoulders were high, its chest was as broad as a barrel. Its head wasn't shaped anything like a human's. The legs were like a man's as well. They were not bent in any weird way. I never saw its eyes. I didn't hear it growl. It didn't need to do anything. Just knowing it was there behind my kid's swing set made me nauseous and terrified at the same time. The thing finally leaned forward and looked at me out of the tops of its eyes like it was studying me the same way I was studying it. And this point, it burned into my mind. It moved and stepped backward, almost like it melted into the dark part of the yard. I never saw it run, and I never heard a sound as it moved away. I don't understand how something that big could physically move through those woods and through that yard, around those fences, without making a sound. It just eased itself out of sight. I went back into the house. Nothing came after me. I didn't hear anything anyway. Nothing made any sounds at all. The next morning, my neighbor on the right side of me, the one whose motion light came on, knocked on my door. He looked extremely stressed out. He asked if we'd seen his dog, a big tan lab. It's an older dog that never leaves his yard. It was gone. He said he heard something in the middle of the night, thought the dog might have gotten scared by a storm or fireworks, but there was no storm, and nobody was shooting fireworks off on a random Tuesday night. I didn't tell him what I saw. What was I supposed to do? Hey man, I'm pretty sure a 9-foot-tall werewolf was in my yard last night. You might want to talk to him about your dog. Yeah, right. Deep down I know what happened to that dog. It's the same thing that was under my kid's window. The same thing that stood behind that playset. My kids refuse to sleep with their window blinds open. That's 4 years later. Who could blame them? My wife now jokes about the backyard creeper without knowing how close she is to the truth. And me, every time I mow or walk past that playset after dark, I feel like it's out there watching me now. I don't think that thing came here looking for us specifically, but it found us anyway. I don't think it was its first time either. That's it. I don't know what else to say here. That is the end of my weirdness. I never had anything strange before this or after this in my whole life, but I think I can be content with knowing that's plenty enough. I appreciate it. E. Subject line. I don't know what dragged my boat, but it wasn't the river. Hey, Reels. I live in Paducah, Kentucky. I'm sure you know where it is. I fish the Ohio River more than I'm at home. It's the only thing that shuts my brain up. I'm not the spooky type. I'm not into paranormal stuff. And before this happened, I didn't even know what a dogman was, except from hearing a couple of jokes about werewolves. This happened in late August of 22. I still don't know how I'm going to go about explaining this without sounding like I'm lying. Believe me or don't, I just feel like I should tell it here. I had gone out after work around 6 in the evening. I anchored by one of the slow bends near the bank. It's a spot where catfish will practically jump in your lap when the sun goes down. It was muggy, it was quiet, there was barely any breeze. I had a couple beers in the cooler, a little battery lantern, and I just sat there enjoying a night away from everything. Around 11, the bugs started getting bad, and I was tired, so I stretched out on the boat floor. I planned to sleep maybe an hour or two at the most. I don't even remember falling asleep, but I damn sure remember waking up. The boat was moving. It wasn't rocking, it was just moving. I could hear water slipping along the sides like I was drifting downstream faster than the current should have been able to pull me. I thought I messed up and didn't set the anchor right. Then I noticed something worse. On the shoreline, I could hear something moving alongside me, keeping pace. I sat up quick and grabbed my lantern. The boat was drifting maybe 20-30 feet from the bank. Except I don't know how because the anchor rope was still down. The current wasn't strong enough to pull me like that. I felt like someone or something was guiding the boat. I shined the light toward the shore, about 10 yards back, right between two trees. was something standing very still, very tall, and very dark in color, way bigger than me. I didn't see its face at the time. What I did hear, though, was the sound of something dragging across the bark of a tree like claws. It was slow movement and slow dragging and scratching, like it was trying to cut the damn tree down with its bare hands. I dropped the lantern down because I suddenly felt stupid, like shining the light on it was some kind of challenge. My whole chest felt like it was going to explode. My throat was dry, and this was a type of fear that makes your body know way before your brain does. The boat just kept drifting, except the rope went tight all at once, hard enough to jerk the whole side. Something had been pulling me, there wasn't a doubt in my mind, and then it just let go. That werewolf-shaped thing started walking along the bank again, following me as the current finally took the boat naturally. I could see details. I could see massive shoulders. I could see it had arms on the upper part of its body. Something about the way it moved completely made it more freaky. It was built like a person, but it didn't walk like any human or animal. Its movements were twitchy, almost like it was having some sort of spasm. It followed me for about 50 yards, maybe more. Then as soon as the river widened and got deeper, it stopped standing upright and lowered itself down very slowly. I saw the reflection of water splashing where it dropped to all fours. Whatever it was, it could move easily both ways. I didn't stick around to watch. I grabbed the oars and paddled into the middle of the river like my life depended on it, which maybe it did. I didn't look back. I didn't check the shoreline again. I just got the hell out of there. When I pulled into the ramp, two older guys sitting on their tailgate asked why I looked like I was spooked. I told them the truth. Not the whole thing, but enough. One of them said, yeah, that stretch of the river gets weird sometimes. You might not want to go out there alone. Make sure someone's with you. That was it. He said this like it was just normal knowledge. I didn't even unload the boat when I got home. I just sat down on the porch and watched the sun come up. I kept thinking over and over everything in my head, wondering what I actually just witnessed and what had been moving my boat. That's the strangest part of this story. The dogman couldn't have moved my boat because it was on the shoreline. I don't know what to believe. All I know is this. Something big followed me down the river that night. And it damn sure looked like a dogman, or what they are described to look like. As for what was pulling me by my anchor line down the river, that is something I will never understand. Could this thing have somehow had some type of power, some type of weird mind thing where it could pull me? If anyone knows, I would appreciate it. Any information. Has anyone heard of anything like this before? Anyways, I'd appreciate any input or any comment about this. I'll be listening to see if it's posted. Thank you. Anonymous. Reels. I wasn't even sure, and I'm still not sure, if this is worth even sending in. But the more I sit here and think about it, the more it just bothers me. Actually, a lot. It wasn't dramatic like what a lot of people go through, but it was enough to change how I look at my own backyard. And I've lived here 14 years, so that's saying something. Anyways, I'm 39, and I live in Western Virginia, in one of those older neighborhoods where the houses aren't close together, but you can still see your neighbor's porch lights through the trees. It's Not what you'd call a special place, just a normal split-level home with a half-rotted firewood rack behind the shed. This was only back in January, around 9 at night. It was freezing, and my wife had just gotten the kids to bed. I was about to settle in downstairs to watch TV, but the living room was cold, and I didn't feel like listening to my wife complain about the draft again, so I went out back for some firewood. I didn't bother putting a coat on. I figured I'd be out there for 30 seconds tops. The backyard was extremely quiet. Abnormally quiet. There was even no dogs barking from down the hill like they usually do. It was just a cold silence where everything feels sort of muted. I stepped across the yard toward the shed, and the whole time I just felt like someone was watching me. That's the only way I can describe it. I normally don't get worked up over stuff like that. I'm not a jumpy person. But something this time was telling me I was in danger. When I finally got to the woodpile, I bent down to grab a few pieces. Then I started hearing something, and it wasn't human, not even close. This was some type of raspy, growling type breathing. It was like air was being forced through someone's throat that was trying to not let it go through. It's almost like a low snarl buried under each breath, if you can picture or think about how that would sound. It was coming from the other side of the shed wall. I stopped there with a piece of wood halfway in my hand. I don't know how long I stood there and unable to move, but I remember my fingers started burning from the cold, and me not even registering it because all I could hear was that sound. I heard gravel begin to crunch under something as it was moving. My first thought was, oh crap, this has to be a bear. But the breathing it didn't add up. The pacing didn't match either. Bears huff, they don't breathe like they're trying to not be heard. Whatever this was, it knew I was there for sure. It just didn't want to show itself, not yet. I took a few steps back and the breathing stopped. I think it might have heard me move. That was the scariest part by far. It wasn't the sound itself. It was the silence that followed, because I knew that it had heard me and it had purposely stopped making noise. It was almost like it started holding its breath, waiting to see what I was going to do. I never once turned around. I didn't run. I kept my head, I kept my composure, and I just walked backwards across the yard, keeping my eyes on that spot. I must have looked insane because I had 3 logs clutched to my chest like I was guarding treasure. Halfway to the porch, something finally moved. A tall, thick shape. Very wide shoulders that didn't make any sense. Its head was higher than the roof line on the shed, which was probably around 8 feet. It was something I'll never forget, the outline of this thing. I could see the ears. They kind of looked like horns, pointing straight up. The way the shoulders were rolling forward as it moved. The way it leaned out just enough for me to know that I wasn't looking at a human. I didn't wait for it to completely step out fully. I backed up the stairs, went inside, locked the door, and pulled the curtains shut so fast I ripped the left side off the rod. My wife asked me what the hell I was doing. I told her I thought a bear was out there. I still haven't told her the truth because I know exactly what I saw, and it wasn't any animal we're supposed to have here. I went out the next day to grab some more wood. Nothing was disturbed. Nothing except this weird smell near the shed. I don't even know how to explain this. It smelled like very strong ammonia, like someone peed out there for a month straight. I don't go out there alone at night, not anymore. I don't even like looking toward the tree line through the kitchen window, which is pointed toward that shed. I know this wasn't the most dramatic story that you ever got, but it was definitely something worth sharing, in my opinion. If something that big was standing 5 feet from me, breathing like that, it's a miracle it didn't come around that corner. I feel lucky to be alive. Anyway, thanks for taking the time to read this and reply to me. You can use it if you want, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me anytime. Friends, legends, family. That's where we're stopping tonight. If you made it this far, you already know these weren't light stories. Some of these people are still dealing with what happened to them, like most others. Some are looking over their shoulder, no doubt. And some, well, they spoke up because silence wasn't an option anymore. To everyone who sent in their encounters, thank you. It does take guts to put something like that into words. You helped push this search for answers one step deeper, one step closer. You have my thanks and my respect. And to all you listeners and channel members, you all are the backbone of what we're doing here. Your support keeps this whole thing moving. The work, the research, the hours, all of it. Thank you for standing with me while I dig for the truth in a place most people are too scared to even look. If you haven't already, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Not because it's a routine, but because every bit of support helps this channel grow, reach more people, and bring in more stories from folks who are barely hanging on to their sanity after seeing these things. All right, legends. Take a breath, shake it off, and remember, the night's not over. It's just waiting outside. Thank you all for listening. Everyone, please stay safe out there. I love each and every one of you. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones, keep your head on a swivel, and as always, good night.